This is terrible quality. Oh well, I guess it's gonna have to work. My name's Brett. Uh, this is day 14 in the 4runner. I really hate the quality of this. It looks like shit. But anyways, it's day 14. It's 9:25 p.m. It's been raining for the last hour or so. Um, so I want to talk about this damn software that I got to edit videos with. I'm trying to remember the name of the one I have or two. So Shotcut and OpenShot. Um, man, I worked on a video last night, for hours and hours, and all of a sudden, like something happened to it. Like there's a thumbnail of it saved, with the name, but got to click on it and it says, something's missing. I can't figure out what it was. I spent so long doing it. I just gave up last night trying to set up the video. So I just to screw it. I've got some more footage. I tried using a different app, or yeah, on my laptop. OpenShot. So far, it seems to be working all right. I honestly haven't done a whole lot with it. I pulled some footage over to it just to see if it was going to work at all. It seems like it might work. The cut shot was just getting so frustrated last night. Like every time I went to do something, the software just got slower and slower and slower. Um, it took forever doing anything. It was just constantly not responding, like just freezing up every few seconds. Just that's probably why I was on it for 4 or 5 hours. Honestly, can't get this shit to work right. I'm trying to be a Debbie Downer, but what else is going on? Uh, it's kind of uncomfortable in here. I'll probably end up putting the other footage up. I don't even know if this will ever even show. Um, I don't know if I'm complaining about the quality of this. I know damn sure everybody else is going to complain about this terrible quality of this uh, webcam on this computer. Um, but yeah, so I've got way too much stuff in this truck. I'm forced to stay in the driver's seat right now as far as sleep goes. Initially I packed this truck. Well, I was in the process of moving. Well, not moving, but I was just leaving the house that I was staying at. And, I moved everything over to a storage area, and I rented it out of a space out of someone's garage. And I thought I got pretty much everything over there I needed, besides like my camping gear and stuff. And when it came to my final day in the house and packing up the truck, for stuff, just thought, you know, that I thought all I really had left was mainly just my clothes and, mostly the camping gear. It ended up being quite a bit more than that. And I wasn't able to drop any of the stuff off on the way out of town at the storage area because the guy wasn't home. So I've had to go on this trip uh, with quite a few bags full of just clothes and stuff that I need to go through. I've got way too much clothing. Uh, yeah. So I had quite a few bags of stuff. Then I also had like a gigantic suitcase full of clothes. I'd already separated a bag just for camping that had like 6 sets of clothing packed up, rolled up, and that's all I was gonna take. Now I've got this giant suitcase and a few bags full of clothes, and it's taking up a ton of room. I'm not able to lay the back seats down and you know set up my pallet or my bedding the way I'd like to, so I could actually sleep like laying fully stretched out at nighttime. Uh, I had a tent, and the first campsite I went to, which was up in Lake Hughes, California, it, it was the weather was pretty nice like the first 3 days, and after that, I had the wind had kind of you know jumbled the tent up a little bit. So I made sure, I like restaked it, made sure it was staked down really well, like as much as it possibly could be staked. This is also an instant pop up tent from Kazoo. Nothing against the company or the tent. I just don't think instant tents are made for high wind. That one definitely isn't. So after a day, I should have collapsed it um, before I left the site, anyways. So it's completely my fault. You know, you learn as you go. So I learned, next time I have a tent and I do decide to leave it, that I'm just going to collapse the tent so that if the wind does pick up, it doesn't completely obliterate the framing, which is what happened with this tent. The wind just absolutely destroyed the aluminum frame. Uh, so uh, I disconnected, the whole frame from the tent itself. I figured maybe uh, eventually I can find something useful to do with the tent itself, being a tarp, well, not a tarp, but tent material. Maybe find something useful to do with that and the rain cover that came with it. Um, so I keep there's there are really big garbage bins at this campsite, and I just keep forgetting to throw this bent up aluminum tent frame out of the truck. But I need to get that out. Not that that's really going to save me any room, but I just tired of carrying it around. Uh, and I still have, a 2.5 foot long bag full of, the tent itself. Without the frame, it's still bulky. So I need to figure out something to do with that. Now, the reason I haven't gone back and taken any of this stuff out and put it in storage is because um, it's probably a good ways away from me. I know it is. Yeah, so from here, it's just not feasible right now because it's 3.5 hours away if I wanted to go get this stuff out of the truck and drive almost 200 miles, 190 miles, just to get this stuff out of the truck and then drive all the way back to this campsite. And, with money being tight at this time, it's just not really feasible for me to make a 400-mile round trip, just to drop some stuff off. It would be nice to have some room in here, but right now, the money's tight, and I've got to hold on to what I've got to try to stretch this as long as I can. While I work out how to make some money, while doing this. Being a nomad. Just living in the truck. Um, I have been looking into quite a few things. Kind of seem to be running into some dead ends as far as these online jobs or remote jobs. I'm not saying they're all dead ends, just a good bit of the stuff. You know, you run into an obstacle, you run into things. Everything you got to do now, like you've got to pay for a membership now. You got to pay for this, got to pay for that. Oh, you want help with this? Then pay for this so you can do this, so that you can do that. It's like you got to pay for a bunch of things, and you don't even know if that one thing that you're paying for is even gonna like pay off in the long run. So I don't want to just paying for a bunch of subscriptions for things. Just have a ton of shit I'm paying for, and none of it's making me any money. So I'm kind of reluctant to just sign up for all this stuff. People are saying this is great, this works, and you make money doing this, and yada yada. And then but you go to do it, you sign up, and say, oh, guess what? They want their piece of the pie too. So yeah, I spent pretty much all day today just doing research for remote jobs, online jobs, just all different kinds of different ways that people are claiming as a feasible way to make money. I'll probably do some more tomorrow. I don't really know what else. I'm running the truck right now. I'm just constantly having to turn it on and charge up the phone and the laptop, so I can. I'm about tempted just to try to, I've edited a couple videos on the phone. I thought it would be easier and, just better quality if I was able to do it on the laptop. But I don't know. I'm going to try out that OpenShot software, see if it works out so I can start getting some videos posted. It's like kind of I don't know, disheartening. It's difficult to want to shoot more footage when I know I've already got plenty of footage that I need to be working on to get it edited and put together so that I can post it. And, so shooting more footage just is like, it's just that much more that, like that I'm behind on getting edited and put together so I can get it put up. Um, what is this button? What is this? You don't have access to the feature. Yeah, of course. I don't have access to a lot of features. Um, yeah, it's raining pretty good outside. Went to the grocery today, or Walmart. You have a really nice spot, parked right next to a river. It's got some some really good flowing rapids. I would not just like walk out into this river. Definitely take you with it. Um, would be great, if I had a kayak, get out there. That would be fun. One day, man, one day, be able to do that. Traveled around a decent amount today. Um, really, exploring this Keysville recreation site. It's BLM land. This is a really, really great camping spot. Um, if you're looking for a place, what do you call this? Yeah, I guess I'm still in South California, SoCal. 10 miles north of Fresno. Okay. Oh, okay. I was right at the Norco uh, or NorCal SoCal line this past weekend. It says 10 miles south or 10 miles north of Fresno, so I was pretty close to that. The other day, I was in yeah. So, yeah, 3.5 hours. But I'm still trying to figure out what to do for work. You know, I have an option next week to take a job, and I know the people really well. It's a great company. It's it's a substance detox residential. It's at a really nice house. Um, I know it would be a great job. The only thing is, I won't be able to travel. Well, I'll work. I'll have 4 days on, 3 days off, so I'll have 3 days to travel. But 3 days to travel is pretty limited. Not going to be able to go out very far with just 3 days, and driving everywhere. So that just really limits what I can do, and I'm really trying to embrace the whole nomad life. Um, like I'm already used to staying in my truck. I've stayed in this truck so many times since I bought it back in June 2021. Uh, I literally lived in the truck for 3 weeks straight, a couple months after I bought it, and I stayed up in the. I was in North Carolina. I was in Asheville area of North Carolina, um, and I stayed up in the mountains there for 3 weeks, and it was pretty nice. It was really nice, actually. What mountains is that? I can't remember shit. Is that the Smoky Rocky? No, Smoky Mountains are. Smoky Mountains are right there. Can't believe I don't know which mountains are located in North Carolina. Yeah, I should be ashamed of myself. Okay, it's Appalachian Mountains. Yeah, thought so. So yeah, it's Appalachian Mountains. Jackass. Uh, I really do not have shit going on right now. Of course, I guess there's not always a lot going on when you're living in a car. Uh, stream. Y'all can't even. I just gotta make this shit difficult as hell for anybody to get out there and get seen. Not trying to play the victim role or anything. I know this is tough. Kind of tired. Staring at a screen all day, just doing research and messing with these videos. And the editing software just mentally exhausted me today. About time to turn some heat on. I want to know the absolute truth about it. Love this. Love this heater. Oh, it's great. It's gonna be quite a while before I can do mobile live. Like 5,000 subscribers or something. Yeah, we got a ways to go. A ways till we can get away from shooting on this shitty ass laptop webcam. This thing is awful. I feel like I'm shooting video 15 years ago. That's what this looks like. Let's see what's going on in the world. Holy shit, look at that. It says I'm live. Check me out. I wonder if I can watch myself. Now pin a message to the top of your live chat for viewers to read. Message to Hey. Oh. It's a couple seconds behind. So this kind of seems like something entertaining. This really does look like something shot more like this looks like a snuff film out of the 80s. Yeah. That's what it looks like. You get any more light? I don't really know if that helps any. Yeah. Okay. I guess it helps some. What type of videos to stream? When filming videos of your friends, classmates, and teens, remember that they should never be sexually suggestive, violent, or dangerous. Note that this rule also applies to live chat. Learn more about blah blah blah. Okay. I need to make some money so I can get new tires put on. I have a set of almost brand new BFG KO2s to replace the almost completely worn out BFG KO2s that I have on here right now, which have been great tires. It'd be nice to get my new tires on. I guess, I'll get to it whenever I get to it. Um, it actually does pretty well still. Like getting through stuff, uh, even with limited traction from the worn out tires. This thing still does exceptionally well. Um, this 4runner, well, there's something to talk about. I'll just give you the stats on my 4runner. So it's a 1999 Toyota 4runner. It's a limited model, black and topaz in color. Um, it is a 4x4. And, I looked into it after, I did some research on them before I bought the truck. And well, one thing that I found out, that really appealed to me, I really liked about them was the 99 and 2000 models. They've got like the interior. 99 was the first year for the interior update for the third gen 4runner. So it's just got like great looking interior, some nice updates that they did as far as the climate control and the cup holders that, the 98 um, had cup holders up on the dash and, no cup holders on the center console. So some nice upgrades and the automatic climate control, which comes in the limited models. It's just, I love it. It's great. Um, but the special thing about the 99 and 2000 models is that it has a J shifter 4x4 transfer case, but it also has uh, four-wheel drive unlock mode, which is essentially all-wheel drive that actuates the front axle, but it keeps the transfer case unlocked. So the center differential is not locked in regular high four. Regular high four is it's a four-wheel drive button. It says four-wheel drive on the button. It's on the side of the shifter, so you don't have to pull it back into four-wheel lock. If you just want to throw it in, you know, high four, and have it unlocked, you can just hit the button, and you got four-wheel drive. Except, transfer case is not, the center differential is not locked. So it's not dividing the power up and sending, the appropriate amount of power to the front and rear as it would if the center diff was locked, which I'm not really sure what the power differentiation is. 99 Toyota 4Runner, 4-wheel drive, power. Hmm. Hmm. How much power is sent to the front axle on a 99 Toyota 4Runner 4-wheel drive? Okay, I feel like I've seen a couple different things. Like I thought maybe I saw one that said 60-40 at one time, but it looks like I just saw one. Once you put it in high four lock, that locks the center diff, and then it. Yeah, it says 50-50 power ratio split. So there you go. This mode is discouraged for driving on pavement, especially when turning due to impossible or possible binding. Second option is to press the button on the TK shifter, which will enable 4 high as well, but the center differential in this transfer case is open, meaning the power ratio between axles can change and won't bind up on firm surfaces. So, there you go. Anyway, I'll tell you about the wave wheel drive system. And the 4Runner has every option you could ever want in regards to different 4x4 options. Yeah. So these are The good years, 99, 2000. Man, I can't believe it's 10 o'clock already. Oh, my truck also has a rear dip locker, which is just awesome. It's just so cool. And it's super helpful. They have center dip locks. Fucking idiot. Man, the heater does work. Yeah, that's a 96 Limited. Just got a straight shifter. Man, I gotta pee. Gotta pee. Mm.
Icon to never miss an upload. With that being said, let's begin. What I'm about to tell you happened to me around 2 years ago. I just passed my driving test. I only had a part-time job completing a folding record. So we did the second half of our day. I was looking for something to fill the time. So when I saw that for a brief conversation, I said, this is what I thought I would find out about the requirements just for the opportunity. It was the perfect compliment, affordable, just what I was looking for. I arranged to meet the seller at his home to check out the car and complete the paperwork. I brought over an illustrator and recorded the drive to the seller's house, and rode there until he stopped thinking when I said that I was determined to own my own car. I pulled up in front of a small,
Chilly.
well-kept home and was greeted by the seller, a friendly man in his 50s. He showed me the car, and it looked great. The engine was in good condition, and
Oh,
everything was in order.
damn. I need to put some
We made
LED
small
bulbs
talk and complimented the weather
up
we
there.
had
That
that
is
day.
way too fucking hot.
I followed the seller inside to do the
That one too.
paperwork, and that's when things started to get strange.
Damn. Halogen
As we
bulbs.
sat down at the kitchen table, he
Shit.
began to ask me all sorts of strange questions. He asked, "Does anyone know you are here? Whose car did you arrive in?" I was caught off guard and didn't know how to respond. I just wanted to finish the paperwork and get out of there. The man then handed me a pen and pointed to a stack of papers. "Just sign here and you'll be done," he said. But as I looked at the papers, I realized that they weren't for the car. They were for something else entirely. I couldn't make sense of it, and I was starting to feel uneasy. I tried to stand up, but the man put his hand on my shoulder, holding me in place. "What are you doing?" I asked him. The man just smiled and said, "Don't worry, everything will be all right." He then pointed at the paperwork and told me to sign with his hand still on my shoulder. I told him I was just reading through it to check it was okay to buy myself some time. I was thinking what I should do. After around a minute, he insisted I signed the paperwork, and it had all been checked over by him before I arrived. I was thinking to myself, I have to get out of here, and decided I was going to make a run for it. I pushed his hand away and bolted for the door. He started chasing me as I to a stack of papers. "Just sign here, and we'll be done," he said. But as I looked at the papers, I realized that they weren't for the car. They were for something else entirely. I couldn't make sense of it, and I was starting to feel uneasy. I tried to stand up, but the man put his hand on my shoulder, holding me in place. "What are you doing?" I asked him, my voice shaking. The man just smiled and said, "Don't worry, everything will be all right." He then pointed at the paperwork and told me to sign with his hand still on my shoulder. I told him I was just reading through it to check it was okay to buy myself some time. I was thinking what I should do. After around a minute, he insisted I signed the paperwork, and it had all been checked over by him before I arrived. I was thinking to myself, I have to get out of here, and decided I was going to make a run for it. I pushed his hand away and bolted for the door. He started chasing me as I ran out of the house and into my car. I locked the car doors and tried to start the engine. He was getting closer to the door. The car wasn't starting. He was now at the car, pulling on the handle to try and open my door. I started the engine and sped out of the driveway. I think where I was in a panic, I wasn't putting my foot on the clutch enough before trying to start the car. I called the police, and they checked out the address. The lady who lived there was in the hospital, and the house was vacant. The police couldn't find any record of the man I had met. The license plate was also a fake, as the police searched the plates on the photos I had from the listing, but they was for a different car. Nothing come of the investigation in the end. I managed to get another deal on a used car a few weeks later. I don't really know how to feel after that encounter, and don't know what his intentions were. I'm just grateful I managed to get out of there and didn't have to find out. I never thought that my decision to sell my lawnmower on Craigslist would lead to such a traumatic experience. I was in need of extra cash, so I took some photos of the mower, wrote up a short description, and posted an ad on Craigslist. I received a few inquiries, but always offered to the first person. He seemed eager to purchase the mower, and he was willing to pay a higher price than what I had listed. I was hesitant at first, but I was in need of the money, so I agreed to the sale. We arranged for him to come to my house to pick up the mower the following day. The next day, I was eager to get rid of the mower and have some extra cash in my pocket. I heard a knock on the door, and I opened it to find a man standing on my porch. He was tall, with greasy hair and a creepy smile. I shuddered as I greeted him, but I tried to hide my discomfort and showed him the mower. He seemed satisfied with the purchase, and we went inside to sort out the cash and give him a written receipt, and that's when things started to get weird. He started asking me strange questions about my personal life and my home. He kept looking around my house and making me feel uneasy. I tried to ignore it and stay focused. He asked to wash his hands, as the lawnmower had left his hands a bit muddy. I said he could use the kitchen sink,
window.
He was taking a long time, so I went in to check on him when he was sitting at the table in a sort of trance. I asked if everything was okay, and he seemed to have, how do I say, switched back on and said yes. He then stood up and went to the front door without paying for the mower. I was already feeling a bit spooked out, so didn't say anything. I just wanted him out of the house. I was relieved when he finally left with the mower, but I was still left with an uneasy feeling. I quickly locked the door behind him and breathed a sigh of relief. From that day on, I was more cautious when selling items online, and I always made sure to meet in a public place. It all started when I lost my job and needed to find a new place to live that fit within my budget. I tried a few places and local agents, but the prices were way out of my budget. I turned to Craigslist, where I found a listing for a room for rent in a shared house. The price was right, and it was in a location that was convenient for me, so I reached out to the landlord to arrange a viewing. I arrived at the address, a rundown, dilapidated house on the outskirts of town. The yard was overgrown, and the paint was peeling from the exterior. I felt uneasy, but I needed a place to live, and the price was right, so I pushed aside my reservations and rang the doorbell. A man answered the door, and my heart sank. He was unkempt and unshaven, with wild piercing. He introduced himself as the landlord and led me inside the house. The inside was even worse than the outside. The wallpaper was peeling, the floorboards creaked, and there was a strange, musty odor that made me want to turn and run. The room I was supposed to be viewing was at the end of a long, dark hallway. When we finally reached the room, I was horrified by what I saw. The room was small and cramped, with barely enough space for a bed and a dresser. The walls were stained, and there was a large crack in the ceiling. I felt a wave of panic wash over me, and I knew I had to turn it down, but in a friendly way. I thanked the landlord and told him I would think about it, but as I was leaving, he grabbed my arm and told me that the room was mine if I wanted it. He wouldn't take no for an answer, and I was starting to feel scared. I managed to pull my arm away and rush out the room. He followed me and told me I wouldn't find another room like this in my budget. I was shaken and terrified, and I knew I couldn't stay there. I told him I am interested but have to think about it. He then insisted we do the paperwork right now so I didn't miss out on the room as he had loads of other people interested. I started walking slowly towards the front door, telling him I would be back in an hour to sign and pay my first month's rent. I just wanted to get out of there. He stepped forward and tried to grab my arm again, but I stepped back and then started walking in a fast pace towards the front door. The front door was locked, so I asked if he could let me out and I would be back when I have had time to think about it. He didn't answer me and just stood there staring at me. He then asked if we could do the paperwork as time was getting on and he had somewhere to be. I accepted and we headed through to the kitchen. As he sat down on the table, I headed straight for the side door in the kitchen.
Believe it or not,
It was unlocked, so I managed to get out and run down the side of the house to the street. I got in my car and drove off as fast as I could. I thought about phoning the police as someone else could be in this situation, but was overthinking it and doubted myself, thinking I just overreacted. But I knew I needed to find out what was going on. I was so relieved that I had managed to escape, but I knew I couldn't keep
Throw a
this to
turbo
myself.
on that one. Shit.
Someone else could be in danger. I went to the police and told them everything, but they didn't seem to take me seriously. They told me that there was nothing they could do unless I had actual proof. I was at a loss, but I couldn't just let this go. I had to do something to protect others from falling into the same trap. So I took to social media and told my story, wanting others to be careful when using Craigslist to find a place to live. And that's where I told this story. He seemed to have took his room for rent off Craigslist when I checked for it. I managed to find a room at my friend's parents' house who had a spare room. I stayed here for a few years until I was able to put down a deposit on my own apartment. But even now, years later, I can still feel his piercing gaze and the musty odor of that rundown house. The memory still haunts me, but I am grateful that I was able to escape with my life. I was struggling to make ends meet and had been out of work for months. So when I saw a job posting on Craigslist for a handyman position, I jumped at the opportunity. The ad promised good pay and flexible hours, and I was desperate for work. I sent an email to the contact listed in the ad and was pleasantly surprised when I received a response within a few hours. The person who contacted me, who identified himself as Ralph, seemed friendly and professional. We arranged the time for a phone interview, and I was hopeful that this might be the break I needed. The phone interview went well, and I was offered the job on the spot. I was instructed to meet with Ralph at a rundown warehouse in a sketchy part of town. I wasn't thrilled about the location, but I was eager to start work and earn some money. I arrived at the warehouse, and Ralph greeted me warmly. He showed me around the outside of the building and explained that my job would be to help with odd jobs and repairs. He handed me a toolkit. Everything seemed normal enough until Ralph began to ask me to do things that made me uncomfortable. He said he had been locked out and needed me to gain access to his warehouse. I reluctantly agreed, thinking that I needed the job and the money. I broke into the building. Thinking it was Ralph's, I quickly returned to the door where Ralph was standing, and he was waiting for me with a worried expression on his face. He told me he needed to move some boxes and got me to load his van with around 6 boxes that were in the warehouse. He thanked me and told me he can take it from there and told me to go home and he will sort out my next job and also payment for this one. I went home feeling unsure of what was going on. It wasn't long before the police knocked on my door, around 2 to 3 days later, if I remember correctly, and I was taken into custody. I was charged with breaking and entering and faced a long prison sentence. I told them what had happened and had the emails to prove it. He had told me to meet him at the location on the phone, so I couldn't prove that part. But the warehouse had security cameras which confirmed I had arrived and was handed a toolkit by a man. After the investigation, I managed to come away without any charges. I never heard from the man again, and he was never caught to my knowledge. I now work for a company doing window cleaning, but this time I made sure it was a reputable company before I applied. As a teenager, I had a side hustle of buying things from Craigslist and then reselling them on eBay for a higher price. I had made quite a bit of money doing this, and it was a fun hobby for me. One day, I stumbled upon a listing for a high-end bike being sold for a fraction of its retail value. I was excited and quickly arranged a meeting with the seller at his home. I knew this would make me a nice bit of profit once resold online. When I arrived, the man seemed really friendly. We spoke about bikes for a while he was showing me around his garage where the bike was located. He even let me test ride it, which I thought was great since I could make sure the bike was in good condition. The bike was in excellent condition, and I decided to buy it on the spot. The man handed me the bike, and I quickly paid him, eager to get home and put it up for a higher price. For some reason, I fell in love with the bike and decided to keep it. It would help me to get to places faster and pick up other items I had brought to sell on for a profit. However, things started to get strange. Every time I rode the bike, I would bump into the man in all different places. I started to get paranoid and told a friend about it. He then asked if it was only while I was using the bike that I saw him, which I then realized it was. He told me to check the bike for any tracking devices. To my horror, I found a small GPS tracker hidden under the seat. I immediately took the bike to the police and reported what had happened. The police investigation led to the man who sold me the bike, and it turned out that he had a history of stalking and theft. He had added the GPS tracker to the bike so that he could follow me and steal it back. I was shaken by the experience, but I was grateful that the police were able to catch the man before he could cause me any harm. The twist was that the man had a long history of these crimes. He was a professional thief and was behind the thefts of many other items that had been sold on Craigslist, including bikes, electronics, and even jewelry. I never would have suspected the man when I first met him. He seemed friendly and trustworthy, but it just goes to show that you never know who you are dealing with when you buy things online. From that day on, I was more cautious when buying things on Craigslist and always checked for any tracking devices. I never wanted to experience something like that again. The thrill of making a good deal wasn't worth risking my safety. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment below letting us know which story you found the most frightening and subscribe if you haven't already.
So the 4runner did share some parts with the new Tacoma. Finally had a body and chassis to call its
Today's
own.
episode is sponsored by June's Journey. Find your first clue by downloading June's Journey today. Available on Android and iOS mobile devices, as well as on PC through Facebook Games.
4runner did, however, share the same engines as the Tacoma. 150 horsepower, 7 liter. Speed standard, replacing intent to take the Tacoma.
Several years ago, a friend and I went on
Although
a multi-day
inevitably more
hiking trip during
reliable.
winter. While preparing for the trip, I found a forum dedicated to the trail that we'd been hiking and several threads about people going missing on it. Most of the members blamed the hikers themselves, saying they were most likely inexperienced would-be adventurers who had went off trail and gotten lost. There was one old man on the forum who claimed that he'd completed the trail once a year for the past 50 or so years, and he believed that there was something more sinister behind these disappearances. Naturally, the other members laughed at him. We set off before sunrise to get as many miles in as possible on the first day. That entire day, we only met one other person, a friendly middle-aged man who lived somewhat locally.
Years to avoid.
He seemed impressed, though, that we were taking on the trail in
Oh,
winter,
yeah.
and even invited us to camp near
Best
his
years,
property,
99,
but we
2000.
declined
Hell
and pressed
yes.
on. That night,
That's
we
right.
were surprised by some pretty dangerous terrain around the edge of the lake and took the decision to sleep in our bivy sacks under an overhanging rock.
4runner was the first
Not
of its
exactly
kind
ideal
we
camping
tested.
conditions, but given the potential
Although
hazards,
the
we
previous
felt
two
that this was the
generations
smartest
were
choice.
safe.
Now, I don't sleep well at the best of times in a
So for the
bivy sack,
third
and
generation,
if you've ever been zipped into one, you'll know how
which
claustrophobic
was
it can
just
feel.
one step below
The rock hanging over my head didn't help either. But a few hours after, I did eventually manage to fall asleep. But I woke suddenly to the sound of my friend shouting and swearing at me.
In relation to the
I
same
popped my head out of my bivy
Billy
and saw
Seal,
that
the 4runner.
he was still sipped inside of
Was
his
his
and had
bumpers
somehow gotten off the
crumpled to
relatively
his
level
leg.
ground that we had been sleeping on and was slowly sliding down towards the lake. I quickly got up and dragged him, with great effort, back up to the level ground. He was absolutely furious with me, claiming that he'd felt me drag him, but soon calmed down and accepted that he'd most likely roll over repeatedly in his sleep. We didn't go back to sleep that night, and instead had some coffee and breakfast while waiting for the sun to come up. When we did set off, it started to rain heavily and didn't stop for almost the whole day. I was also having some trouble with an old injury in my leg, which slowed us down considerably. The sun seemed to disappear rather suddenly near the top of a deceptively steep hill as well. So we set up camp there, and then, this time, in a tent. After the rough couple of days, we were grateful to be inside of a tent, and the ground underneath us was actually not too bad as well. We talked and joked about the trip so far, and for some reason I remember my friend expressing his disappointment that he'd forgotten to pack his iPad, and then he tried to sleep. Soon after, though, I began to hear what sounded like human footsteps. I thought to myself, surely there isn't anybody else out here climbing this hill at night. The sound continued, and the more intently I listened, the more I became certain of what I was hearing. I poked my head out of the tent, and the sound suddenly stopped. I got out to pee, and I looked around, but there wasn't a soul in sight. Shortly after getting back into my sleeping bag, the footsteps started again. This time, they started circling our tent. By this point, I must admit that I was pretty frightened, and I asked my friend, "Are you hearing this?" He responded, "Yes, I am," knowing that he'd been hearing them the entire time. It sounded as freaked out as I did. It genuinely terrified me. We got out of the tent again and asked if anybody was there. But again, there was no one around. The sound had stopped instantly. The footsteps around the tent continued for quite some time, and we didn't sleep. As soon as the sun came up, we packed up our things, got off the trail, and hiked to the nearest. We've never been able to find a convincing explanation of what could have been causing the sound of the footsteps that night. and my friend has since become a full-fledged missing person, paranormal, and conspiracy enthusiast. Let me start by saying that my brother and I are extremely experienced desert campers. We have lived near deserts pretty much our whole lives. I have never in my 20 years of life ever for 1 second believed in anything paranormal or anything to do with evil spirits. Unlike my brother, who has always sensed presences and been able to see mostly what we call jinn, also known as demons. That is, until last night, which is safe to say marks the last time that we will be camping alone in the desert. We always have the same place that we like to go when we want to camp with minimum effort, and our day started as normal. But as we got closer and closer to our destination, I saw my brother's mood completely shift. And when I asked what was wrong, he just sort of shrugged me off and told me to just keep driving. When we arrived, I felt completely fine, but my brother was still unusually quiet. It was around 1 p.m. at that point, and we were planning on leaving at around 12 or 1 a.m. Because of the heat, we made the terrible decision, though, to set up under a few trees and a source of water, which in Middle Eastern culture is where the jinns live at night. Not that I believed that at the time, of course. However, we still set up our camp and we continued on as normal. Now, my brother always says that when he feels a presence, or several in this case, he gets extremely unlucky. First, he almost dropped a box of coals on his foot. Then he spilled an entire bottle of Coke on his phone. Then he dropped it into the sand and proceeded to smash his elbow on the edge of a chair that he was sitting on, which is now very swollen. And last but certainly not least, when he was looking through one of our boxes, he felt something cold and sharp press against his arm, and he realized that it was an unsheathed knife, which he packed with its case the previous night before, and he later said that it felt like something pushed his hand into it, right where his veins are. All of these events consecutively, within a matter of a few hours, was certainly making us both uneasy, and I, for the life of me, couldn't figure out why he was suddenly so unlucky. But as I was starting to question his clumsiness, a random couple appeared out of nowhere, informing us that they were stuck in the sand and needed some help. We drive a Land Cruiser and they had a Nissan Altima, so we didn't expect to encounter as many issues as we did, but we first dug them out without any issues. But as we pushed them out of the sand, they got stuck again. If you know anything about dune bashing or desert camping, then you understand the physics behind how wheels get stuck in the sand. And the way that this Nissan was stuck was incredibly unusual. It was literally stuck somewhere with plenty of space available for grip. And later on, my brother said that as we were digging them out of the sand, that's when he really started feeling like an evil presence around us, but didn't want to say anything as not to ruin the trip and freak me out, all these people. So we ended up having to tow them out of the sand, which again was far harder than it had to be. First, our tow strap broke off from the bumper. The tow strap cost $200 and was fine, but their bumper was slightly damaged. Then we almost got stuck ourselves, and a 20-minute job took more like 90, which again was extremely unusual and, with hindsight, just the beginning of everything that was to come. So when we got back to our camp, we noticed how everything around us had suddenly got really unusually quiet. The area that we were in has hundreds of birds around, and as far as we have seen, 3 cats who sometimes pay us a visit. There wasn't a single noise at all, other than our fire, that is, which was dying out really quickly. It had gotten pretty dark quickly, so we had scrambled to build a fire to cook our dinner before we were asked to help the couple, and I noticed the silence, but it didn't bother me. However, my brother suddenly grabbed my hand as we were sitting down to eat and said with clear fear in his voice that we should go as quickly as possible and that he didn't feel safe. To ease both of our minds, we prayed. We're Christians, so of course we thought that it would help us. But I think it may have actually accelerated everything that happened that night and just made whatever was out there with us very angry. So we quickly finished our dinner, and me being the skeptic, I was completely fine and pretty much humoring my brother until I started getting this really nagging feeling that it was time to pack up and leave. It hit me like a wave, too, and I was quite taken aback by the feeling, so I voiced it to my brother, and he agreed that we should pack up right away and that we should leave. So we started packing up at a normal pace, like we were just tired and wanted to leave. And that's when we heard a sound very close to us on the opposite side of the pond, which wasn't that big, that I could only describe as the sound of, I don't know,